I've got sort of a unique background in that I've done print at a pretty decent level. I didn't really pursue like a super high level, but I've had, letters editor. I had my own newspaper at Berkeley. I've written articles, certainly done radio, obviously at a high level, and did TV at a high level. I was a, co-host of a national television show. Done YouTube at a high level. I've got about 58 million views, 58 million plus on my videos and going. And I want to put some more efforts into that for sure. And I've also seen politics and business at a high level. Been a consultant for major campaigns, including U.S. Senate. It's tough to get much bigger than that. I mean, but, U.S. Senate, governors, and presidents, and that's it, right? Similarly, obviously, I've done business at a high level in terms of Silicon Valley. Been in a venture fund, being around top people. We've detailed that. I've got a company now, which basically does venture capital conferences, venture capital, academic, sports media, healthcare, policymakers, conferences, extremely successful. We've done that. I'd love to take a look at doing something in South Florida. I've got people pinging me like, hey, when's the next one? So I've got to start looking at that. And obviously I've trained a bunch of professional athletes. I've been around people that are very famous, very, very rich. This is the point that's going to get to all of this. And it's detailed. There's a lot of ground to cover here. So I've seen media from many different angles. I've seen fame from many different angles. I've seen what that's like, and I see how it's changing. And you see, I detailed before how someone I knew that was a major radio personality and had been a pretty substantial television personality, in my opinion, was kind of making fun of YouTube. Didn't really understand it, didn't really understand the medium. I understood it. And that's why I was on YouTube. Now, I didn't have the whole setup to be able to go full blast, but I've done, for basically no one backing them up and no major production, I've done extremely well on YouTube, extremely well. It's hard to find people that have done better than I have that you can actually track down and find, and etc. Because they're living that life, and there's not that many of them, again, that didn't have someone or a group or a crew or a bunch of people funding them or all the rest. They're out there. There's a bunch of them that have done it, but they're in that zone, right? And they're doing that, and they've done incredibly well. And once you get traction, you keep going. But anyway, that's a little bit of a distraction, slightly. And a lot of people talk about President Trump, and all these things relate to each other. You'll get this here in a second. This is all a setup, and I've got to move quickly on this. And there's so much to talk about. With President Trump, and I used to be an intern at CNN, working on the news desk there. I do it once a week when I was in law school for the Western region there in San Francisco. Would take Bart in, and so I know how they make news, and there's talks about journalists and is journalism declining, and you have President Trump. And he's disrupting everything, and if we can just get rid of Trump, we can go back to the way that it was. And I'm here to tell you that you'll never go back to the way that it was. And also, it's not just the swamp. You look at media, the visceral negative reaction that they have against Trump. And I've seen different things out there. I think Media Research Center and some others had some data out there, some studies. And I think there's been Harvard studies and some other studies out there where the coverage of Trump is so negative, just insanely negative. And why is that? Well, there's a lot of things that go into this. And it's kind of going to be a little bit of inside baseball here. We may cover this to a next segment too. There's so much to talk about, but this is very important. And I want you to follow me with this. And it relates to YouTube, for my YouTube. That's why I want to do a video here to bring this to YouTube. It relates to everything that we're all being part of, and social media and all of it. It used to be back in the day, Walter Cronkite, the rest, that you had three major networks. And there's something in media, studying it, whether you go to, and if you go to school, like I'm doing actually school with Johns Hopkins for my MBA, my Master in Communication. So I actually study a lot of this stuff. It's called agenda setting or agenda building. Basically and Rush talks about this, how the mainstream media had a monopoly, if you will, and could set the agenda of what we're talking about. Whatever it is, it could be trade policy, coronavirus, a hurricane, it doesn't matter. And how do you know what's going on in Washington, D.C. other than what you read in the newspaper, what you see on TV? In back in the day, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, super powerful. And I can remember being at CNN and being an intern and, hey, go check out the paper, see what's being covered, and then that would help usually dictate things that we would cover, or at least give you story ideas. So you see a lot of convergence in the mainstream media. I'm going to fast forward a lot of this and try to condense it. So the power that the media has is important. And we talk about journalism not being what it was. You have to understand who wants to go into, you have to understand that journalism changed. The papers used to be the big thing. Then somewhat radio as well. But then TV took over. And when TV took over, it became a different thing. It became a different skill set. It wasn't just the news. The news was no longer the star. It was, but it wasn't. You had television stars. Do you see what I'm saying? You have, I'm not going to name names. I'm going to put anyone on blast. But let me just tell you that there are top anchors out there that, may not be Einsteins, okay? May not have super horsepower intellectually, may not have that super deep resume, may not have that super educational background. I'm not trying to slam anybody or put them on blast, but you know what? They look great, they can speak well on teleprompter, and they look and sound the part. It's different. They're almost like spokespeople. It's different. And those people, sometimes who go into that, may not always, in my opinion, want, because I've been around these people, okay? I've been in it. I've been one of those people, right? They may not always want to, they have the love of the news, the love of journalism, the way that, I don't know, an Edward R. Murrow or someone like that, Pulitzer, whoever you want to call, would love that. Rather, they want to be famous and rich. Now, I've talked about that before. Like, this is my medium, this is my art, this is my way to be a creator. It's sort of like if you were, whatever the fad is on YouTube, it could be anything, whatever, a hula hoop challenge or a juggling challenge. It's not that these people want to, or whoever's doing it, whatever influencer is doing it, that they love juggling. No, that's just what you have to do in order to get over, in order to be popular, because that's the trend today. So it's a means to an end. I personally love to have a platform because I love to have conversations. I love to be successful. I care about being successful and helping my family. I don't care as much about being quote unquote famous. That's different. I don't need fame. I'm not a self-mark. I don't work that way, okay? We're going to talk more about this. This is actually very important. You got to stay with me on this, because I'm going to lay this out in a way that I don't think anyone's done before or had the capability maybe possibly to do it the way that I'm going to do it here, okay? Listen to me. John Villarreal here, the super genius. So now I'm going to lay this out. John, why are you saying all this? Why are you talking about yourself and your bio? Because I'm making a point. I've been there. I've seen these people. I know how it all works together. I know how it all connects in a way that probably nobody else does. So here's what I'm trying to say. When people react, this is part of it. The reaction to Trump is the politics. Part of the reaction to Bernie is the politics. Part of the reaction is a disruption and attack on the system. It's not just the slump. Yes, that's part of it. It's more. It's more. The massive, massive media bias is more. It goes to all of it. It goes to you on YouTube. It goes to you on social media. It goes to you, the listeners out there on the radio right now. This is what I mean. You have to understand, a lot of these academic things are written like, oh, or the articles, the decline of journalism, it's so sad. You know, PR is getting too powerful. Everything's spin now. Everybody wants to be an opinion commentator. We don't have real news anymore. The 24/7 channel, cable news channels aren't news anymore. It's all opinion. Social media, fake news, everything. Oh my goodness, the sky's falling. We need someone to curate this. We need to go back to where people would tell us the news. No, here's the deal. Why has opinion journalism exploded? Because that's where the money is. That's where the audience is. Just like talk radio makes more money than a bunch of other formats. And guess what? Radio's not what it used to be. We all know that. It's changed. What's the hottest products right now in audio? In my opinion, Joe Rogan Experience and Bill Simmons podcast. You don't believe me? Check the news. Okay? Howard Stern's on Sirius. Things have changed, but again, you have to ask yourself there's a business and there's technology that's disrupting, but you also have to ask yourself about the talent. What's the talent trying to do? What are their goals? These things are not static. You take someone like George Stephanopoulos, perfect example. Okay, George Stephanopoulos used to be a political consultant to President Bill Clinton. Then he was a political analyst on TV, still does that. He also has This Week with George Stephanopoulos, one of the most important Sunday talk shows. It used to be This Week with David Brinkley. And he also is an anchor for Good Morning America. So George Stephanopoulos wears different hats depending on the time of the day. Same person, different expectations, different roles. But what's the goal? Why does George do all those things? In my opinion, in my humble opinion, if you're just about politics, just about the hard news, you're not doing GMA. You do GMA, look at Michael Strahan, because it helps you make money, it helps you get famous. It gives you clout and power. There's a different kind of power that comes with political stuff. You take someone like Chris Wallace. I've met Chris Wallace. No offense to Chris Wallace. Probably doesn't remember my name. It's cool. It's not a big deal. Met him at Presidency 5 in Orlando. We were in that special room hosted by Google. Okay, I had press passes. I was in there. It was cool. I was around the big shots. Awesome. Met Stephen Hayes. I met a lot of people. In my opinion, Chris Wallace was acting like a big shot. Okay, that's fine. He wasn't rude to me. My wife was there. It's fine. It's no big deal. But when I see everything Chris Wallace is doing now in regards to Trump, none of it surprises me. None of it. So you have to ask yourself, what's up with Chris Wallace? Why is Chris Wallace seems so against Trump, in my opinion? What's up with that? And he's just one person. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm not alleging anything, not casting aspersions. All for entertainment purposes, we know that. He's just one piece in the puzzle. I don't have much time. I got to really condense this. There's so much to talk about. I'm trying to set the table so you understand all of it. In my opinion, people who want to be on national TV do it as much for the fame as the money. They want money, fame, and power usually. Political journalism is more shifted on policy and power. The power is the influence. That's the power. The power in Hollywood and on TV, in New York and in LA, is the fame. Someone like The Rock, someone like Vin Diesel, someone like that, someone like the Kardashians have power, have more fame and money than necessarily power. With the political stuff, whether it's talk radio, whether it's the Sunday shows, particularly Sunday shows, Washington, the power is the influence. So look, all these things are a little bit different. Just like doing TV is different than doing YouTube. So when someone like Bernie Sanders, and the same thing with the parties, going up through the ranks in the parties, going up through the ranks in first you're a city council person, then you run for state, senate or legislator, then you run for Congress, then you run for senate, then you run for governor, or you run for president, and then you work your way up to that. Bernie Sanders did some of that, although he's been a senator for a long time. Trump's done none of that. And Mayor Pete is trying to skip levels too. Barack Obama went through it very fast as well. So now you have people, and there's tons of money. And so think about this. You've worked your entire life. We're on the number 7 market right here in Miami. You've worked your entire life. Most people will never get up to this level. You've worked your entire life to be in radio. Then all of a sudden one day, it just changes. Radio's not the game anymore. TV's not the game anymore. Being a local anchor, used to be able to make $250,000, $500,000, $750,000 being a local anchor in a TV market, a top 20 market. How many people can do that now? Show me. That game's changed. But if you've worked your whole life, McClatchy, we talked about that. You've worked your whole life to make it up to a big time editor of a paper, Miami Herald or something else, and now that game is gone. So when you have Trump and Bernie coming up in the mix here, they are threatening not just the swamp, it's not just policy, it's the entire ecosystem. It's the entire system of power, fame, and money. How it's made, how it's sold out, what works. It's not just that they won, it's how they are winning. That's a key point. I'm going to say that one more time. It's not just how they won, it's how they are winning. Social media, individual people, the control is now here. We have such a diversity of viewpoints now. We have anyone can post a YouTube video, anyone can do Facebook Live, anyone can post on social media, anything can possibly go viral. Now there's a whole kinds of things about what can go viral, and that's a whole different discussion, but it can happen. There's a different power structure now. There's a different game, and it's changing and it's moving. What's relevant now? What is the right platform? Who has the power? And people have built entire businesses, entire careers off of legacy systems. And those entire legacy systems are all threatened. So the reaction to me against Trump and against Bernie Sanders, I get it. I know those people that are I don't know them all personally, but I know the type of people, if you will. I've been around them. I've met lots of them. I've met Sean Hannity. I can go on down the list. So nothing against Sean Hannity. Sean's doing a great job, and we talked about that before. You understand what I'm saying? I know the mentality. I've been around these top, politicians. Same thing there. I haven't met, nothing against anybody, I get it. Listen, I own my own stuff, right? But I haven't met a single elite politician that wasn't pretty self-absorbed, okay? That didn't want that level of importance and fame and power and stuff. Doesn't mean that they weren't trying to do good things, nothing against them, but believe me, it was very much about them as well. So once again, when Trump comes in there, he's threatening the entire system. It's just like, when they invented the airplane, all of a sudden, it changed everything. The internet has changed everything. Trump and Bernie, they are not, as I said this somewhere else, so I'm quoting myself, they are not the, you cannot blame, let me put it this way. You don't just defeat Trump and it's all going to go back to where it was. It's never going to go back to where it was. It's different now. Everything has changed. And these entire power structures have all been threatened. We have people that have just done YouTube. Look at Little Nas X. That dude in 1 year has changed his entire life. That dude's a worldwide star. 3 years ago, almost nobody knew of this dude. You could never, ever do that before to any kind of degree of regularity. It's the same thing in politics. So all of these things are under threat. The entire system. That is why you're having the crazy pushback. Because all those people that worked all their lives to get up to that level, that finally have some power, that have the money and stuff, they are freaking out. The Morning Joes of the world, in my opinion, are freaking out because they just realized that their power has greatly diminished. And that affects their system and their franchise. And in fact, in their identity. That's why I've been around, like I said, I've been around all kinds of crazy fam. Going along the segment, I'll hurry up. I've never bought into, I don't need the fame. Because I know that's an illusion. And I understand, and other people have done it really well, in order to be relevant, you need to stay ahead of the game, not behind the game. You need to stay current. You can't get tied into any one thing because it all changes very rapidly. Disruptions hit every single aspect of our lives, and technology, it's going to hit everything else. So it's a hallmark of the changing of the game. And so it's an old Gandhi quote, right? First they make fun of you. I'm not going to get it right. I don't want to mess it up. But basically, like, they always make fun of the new media. They make fun of the new ways. And Trump's done stuff. But I mean, you can't really, Trump and Bernie, they are attracting more voters. They're attracting more people into the system. They are talking directly to people through tweets and town halls and all kinds, live streaming, all kinds of different events. How is that a bad thing? It's only a bad thing if you're totally invested in the current system. And there's reasons for that. So when we talk about the decline of journalism and the decline of all, it's because, in my opinion, and not in a small bit, these people are invested in the personal gains that they get from it. So when they talk about the swamp, there's a larger swamp, there's a larger thing going on there. Anyway, that's just some thoughts there. There's so much more to talk about there. I couldn't do that justice. I had to do that as fast as I can. Just to wrap that up extremely quickly, what I'm saying is that everything is changing. Everything has shifted. It's no different than Kodak with, the Polaroids or Polaroid with the way film was done. It's first you had developed the film for so long. You had Polaroid. You had all kinds of different technology, and then it moved to digital, and digital disrupted all of that. It disrupted all of it. If you cannot figure out Amazon, how much are they disrupting? If you cannot figure out how to shift and be relevant, then you're in trouble. You're in trouble politically, you're in trouble in business, you're in trouble with media. I mean, so what I've seen in one of these things I was telling someone else is, you can talk journalism and PR and all these different political and all these different things and it's like, dude, all I know is every single form of media that I've been around, it's always, you see people around you attempting, usually that are ambitious, wanting to get to a bigger platform. You see them wanting to get big name guests, the biggest. So in chasing that, they call them getting, the gets, interviewing president, interviewing a world leader, interviewing someone who just won the Super Bowl. Why? Because that gives you the prestige. That gives you're in that mix with them. You're part of the story. We've seen recent stories. How many times do we see journalists trying to make themselves part of the story? Or you see, it gets you audience. It comes back to, again, you have to understand that people that want to do that, want to be on what's driving them? What's driving the business? When you can answer those questions, where do they derive their power and legitimacy, whatever you want to call it, then you start answering some questions. So all of that, but the bottom line is everything's changing. Technology, new business models is disrupting everything. And anyone who thinks that it's not, unfortunately, I got news to tell you that it probably is. But anyway, so we'll leave that where it is. That is a longer conversation. We covered a lot of ground there. I am the super genius. Try to bring it to you as condensed as I can. Hopefully that made sense to everybody, and you appreciate that. And I'll have that up on YouTube later, probably as an Ask a Super Genius type of deal.